SEP Fanfic Readings presents Aurelian by BittyBlueEyes.
Chapter 38. Another Border. Pansy kept her eyes open wide and watched fireplace after fireplace flash in front of her as she spun through the Flu network. She became increasingly nervous with each spin, and she couldn't remember ever traveling so long via Flu. When finally she stopped, she threw out a hand to steady herself against the stone hearth. Once steadied, she looked out into the room and at the many faces in it, and felt the instant urge to quickly speak the name of her family home and be swept away again. "Oh, Pansy dear, thank goodness you're all right." A kindly little woman with graying red hair greeted her. "Come on in. You don't want to just stand in the grate." Pansy timidly stepped into the kitchen and glanced quickly at each person. She watched as a girl with black hair fled the room, leaving her with naught but redheads. She instantly recognized Ron and Ginny, then also the twins. There were two other men in the room, one tall, with a ponytail, and the other shorter and stockier like the twins. The woman who spoke to her, she assumed, was their mother. Beside the woman was a young boy with soft brown hair, who she had overlooked at first. Looking off to the side, she at last recognized one last face that eased her anxiety somewhat. "Perny?" she asked in confusion. "Where am I?" "Welcome to the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix," Ron said with a small smile. A chime sounded from behind her, and she turned to look at the fireplace, hoping for Draco to step through. Hermione appeared and immediately began brushing the soot from her cloak. It wasn't Draco, but Pansy still felt oddly relieved to see her. "Draco will be here in a minute," Hermione announced. "Pansy?" A cry rang from the kitchen staircase. A split second later, the kitchen door was thrown open, and Blaze burst into the room. He was followed by the raven-haired girl that Pansy recognized as a former Gryffindor chaser, the former Beauxbatons champion, Fleur, and two more redhead Weasleys. "Pansy, are you all right?" Blaze gripped her arms and stared into her face in a panic. "Were they at your estate? Your family? Are they all right? Your father?" "Blaze, she's fine," Hermione said firmly, hoping to shake him from his frantic state. "Blaze?" Pansy looked utterly perplexed, but as realization dawned, her puzzled look turned into one of fury. "You're in on this?" "In on? You make it sound like a bad thing." Blaze blinked in confusion and frustration. "A bad thing? I was locked away and I don't know why, and you knew the whole time. Draco at least told me he couldn't say anything. You listened to me go on about it and let me believe you didn't know a thing about it," Pansy shouted, her eyes shiny with unshed tears. "Pansy," Blaze said consolingly as he took a step toward her. Pansy took a step back and turned her eyes away from him. She felt betrayed and humiliated, which only added to the discomfort of standing in a place she'd never been with many people she'd never met, and worse, some that she had. And averting her eyes from Blaze, her sight fell directly upon Hermione. Hermione's heart went out to the girl. She and Pansy were not friends, and at that point in their life, they were hardly anything at all to one another, but Hermione felt pity for her. The tears in Pansy's red-rimmed eyes were just like those she herself had cried so many times in recent days. The poignant empathy pricked at Hermione's heart and created a conflict within her. She waited anxiously for Draco to return, but her sympathy for Pansy urged her to take her from the crowded room to someplace more private. She considered herself lucky when the fireplace charm rang out and saved her from making the decision. All the room's attention settled upon Draco as he stepped into the kitchen. There was something about his mien that exuded power and strength. It stunned Hermione speechless as she stared at him. There was something in the way that he held himself, his jaw firm, his eyes hard, his shoulders back, and hands balled at his sides, that made her feel like she was looking at Harry. She'd always known that he had a strong presence, but it only hit her then what a natural-born leader he was. For a split second, the world faded away and was replaced with the image of the Draco from the Pensive. She saw the man that, upon Harry's death, took charge and convinced the others to keep fighting. She didn't know when the change had occurred, but Draco had burgeoned into a man of great maturity, determination, and courage. She knew that he had the potential to become that man, but it surprised her that the change had happened only over the last few weeks. Gone was the boy once considered Harry Potter's opposite. Draco had become his equal. "He's gone to the Parkinson estate to let her father know where she is and to reset the ward," Draco told Hermione. "She's staying here, then?" Hermione asked. Draco nodded in silent affirmation. "I am?" Pansy asked anxiously. "For the time being, yes," he answered. "You wanted to know what's going on, so you're full in now. With Harry's blessing, you get everything. No more secrets." Hermione blinked in surprise, her mouth agape, not missing that he called Harry by his given name, as the rest of the group nodded in understanding. There's another bed in my room, Ginny offered. It's hers if she'd like. Thank you, Draco replied. But that comes later. Explanations first. Let's go fill you in. Pansy apprehensively agreed, and Draco began to escort her toward the kitchen chairs. Hermione understood by a simple glance from him that she was invited to join them. Before Draco started up the staircase, he turned back to the room. Blaise, Ginny, and, Ron, maybe it'd be good for you to join us too. It felt as strange to Ron to hear his name as it was for Draco to say it, but neither acted like it was anything out of the ordinary. Ron stood with the others and made to follow without a second thought. He felt rather honored to be called into the discussion group. Shall I send the elves up with dinner? Molly asked. She tried to take Aurelian's hand to prevent him from following the others, but he skillfully slipped past her. Yes, thank you, Draco answered, taking Aurelian's hand in his own. Lifting the boy into his arms, he led the way to the sitting room. Pansy. Pansy. Pansy! Draco's voice started soft and tentative, but rose in volume and insistency. Pansy asked, pulling out of her deeply pensive state. I asked if you were all right, Blaise repeated with concern. I mean, I know this has got to be a lot to take in. The moment the group had taken their seats in the sitting room, the explanations began. With all they needed to cover, their talk had gone on for nearly 2 hours. It is, but I don't think it affects me like you think, Pansy answered, still a little lost in her thoughts. I mean, I knew it had to be bad. Potter wouldn't ask for your help unless it were, she said to Draco. And I don't think either of you are in the habit of confining entire families to their homes without just cause. I saw yesterday that you were dealing with Death Eaters. I even thought I had seen her name, but I don't know. With the way you have talked about her in the past, I guess it's not a huge surprise to me that she would go to some measure to keep herself from dying completely. I'm not saying that it's not terrifying, but I've been terrified since I was first told I couldn't leave my house. The thing I find most hard to believe is him. Pansy nodded toward the boy playing beside Ron's chair. A boy from the future. Your boy, no less. It's just incredible. Daddy, help, Aurelian pouted, toddling over to Draco. What's wrong? Asked Draco. Wonder which got her hair stuck on my lolly. As he answered, Aurelian held up his lollipop and comic figurine, dangled from it by its long blonde hair. Where did you get a lolly from? Draco asked as he took the candy and toy from his son. Aurelian looked sideways at Hermione, leaned in closer to Draco, and whispered hoarsely. Uncle Fwed and Goj gave it a secret. I see, Draco smirked. He watched Hermione chuckle and shake her head out of the corner of her eye. It was just like those two uncles to try to teach his son to be sneaky. Draco cast a cleaning spell on the doll and the candy and handed them both back before turning back to Pansy. Sorry for the interruption. You were saying? No, that was it, Pansy answered. Well, there's this too, I guess. I don't know if it could feel any more surreal. You think this might actually be the ring of Morgana? Or the stone, I mean? Pansy asked, twisting Draco's ring in her fingers. Bellatrix thinks it is, Hermione answered. At least, we're pretty sure she does. As for us, we're not really sure. Well, you said the appraiser believed it was from the 14th century, so that'd be rather soon after the last claim. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's quite possible. Have you tested it? Pansy asked curiously. Of course we have, Ron answered. Not that we actually know what we're looking for exactly. We only tested a few things. We just used small cuts. We tried applying the stone directly to the injuries, and then, well, we tried kissing the ring, Hermione explained. It just seemed kind of obvious idea, no matter how silly it felt. It didn't work, so we wondered if it had to be a female that did the healing. We had tried with Draco using it at first because he's the owner. We tried it on me next. The same thing. In the end, we all had to use healing spells to seal them up, said Ginny, staring at the patch of skin on her hand that was still slightly discolored. I'd like to do so much more, Hermione said with longing. I'd love to do an alchemist dip and a few other revealing spells, but we really don't like to keep it out of the box more than we have to. Speaking of which, I'm going to tuck it away again, Draco said as he got to his feet and held out his hand for the ring. Sure, Pansy responded, handing the ring over without hesitation. But can I ask why? My wooden box has a spell on it that prevents the contents inside from being summoned. We're afraid that Bellatrix might be familiar with it enough to use an advanced summoning spell on it, Draco replied, opening the top to the carved wooden box. But if it's really the face stone, then she can't summon it, Pansy said thoughtfully. That could work as a test for you, couldn't it? What? Ron asked on behalf of all the others. Well, I told you two about that one assistant that Morgana had that summoned the stone from the bottom of the cauldron, right? Pansy asked, looking between Draco and Hermione. Yeah, she killed him, Draco stated simply. Yes, but in her outrage, she cast a spell on it. From that day on, no one could summon the Face Stone except for the owner. I don't know if that means that the current owner of the stone or just Morgana herself, Pansy explained. Both spells are possible, Ginny said. I suggest we test it. Without warning, Ginny cast an audible summoning spell on the ring in Draco's fingers, and it made no move. Opening his hand so that the ring lay flat in his palm, he looked at Blaze. Try it. Blaze cast the summoning spell, and it failed again. Each in the room took a turn at it, but it did not budge. This can't be real, Draco said, staring hard at the small ornament. Your turn, Draco, Pansy said excitedly. I already know that I can, Draco answered. That's why I was afraid Bellatrix could. One last try, though, Hermione suggested, for the record. Draco sighed and placed the ring on the desk next to the open box. He stepped back a few feet and silently summoned the ring to his hand. It did not surprise him at all when it came, but the others in the room stared in awe. That doesn't actually prove anything, Pansy said, more to herself than anyone else, but it certainly got me pretty convinced. Merlin, Draco, it's incredible. Paul and Isella might seriously kill me if they ever find out and realize that I already knew. Wow. How does it feel to be in possession of what is arguably the most treasured and valuable mythical artifact in history? Frightening, Draco answered, as he placed the ring in the carved box and snapped the lid on. Of all the emotions to choose from, frightening? Pansy asked incredibly. Why? Because Bellatrix wants it. Bellatrix knows I have it. And Bellatrix will do anything to get what she wants, Draco answered coldly. She wants Aurelian, Hermione said weakly. Everything Draco had just said about the ring was also true of their son, and she found it much more terrifying. Don't fret over it, Hermione, Ron said fiercely. That woman isn't going to lay a finger on either. Are you sure we couldn't have just let him sleep with us one more night? Hermione asked pitifully as she settled into bed with Draco. You know it's better for him, Draco answered, and you know it's not just because I don't like to share. I know, but I don't want him to feel scared and alone. And that pout of his, I don't want him to think you're replacing him or anything. He knows he's not being replaced. Remember, he had a bed of his own once, and he's not alone. Ron's sharing a room with him, and they even have a nightlight, Draco replied, pulling Hermione closer. The closer you hold him, the more frightened he is. We need to be strong for him, so he doesn't feel the need to worry so much. I know, but it hurts, Hermione pouted miserably. And it's not just him I'm worried for. I'm worried for everyone. I know, but you have to let it go for now, and get some rest. It's not going to help anything to sit and worry now. Relax. We can just think it over properly in the morning, Draco urged. I wish it were that easy, she sighed. It is. We just need to think about other things, Draco said, nuzzling his nose into her hair. Tell me about what happens after this is all over. When she and the other Death Eaters are gone forever, what happens then? Hermione breathed deeply as she thought on the question. Everyone can finally go home and stretch out, she said softly. Yeah, as big as this place is, it's getting a bit cramped. Keep going. Well, you'll go back to the manor, the Weasleys go back to the burrow, and I can fix up my parents' home and bring them back, and... She sighed again. And we'll go out and find a new flat for you and Aurelian, Draco said encouragingly. Can you say shopping spree? Hermione chuckled. We'll leave Aurelian with someone and we'll go shopping, just the two of us. New wardrobe, new furnishings, and kitchen supplies. You can let your creativity run wild. All the things you imagined, Draco continued. I don't want to go overboard, Hermione responded. Too bad. We will. It will take time to find a place and furnish it, though. So you'll stay at the manor until then. Not that I like to complain, but this bed, well, mine's 10 times more comfortable and has the softest sheets on the planet, he smirked. Aurelian can bring his Quidditch rug and will even charm the ceiling with stars for him. The thought excited him greatly, but he tried not to let it show too much. If he were honest with both of them, he wished she would just forget about her own flat and simply stay with him. But he knew she wouldn't. She enjoyed her independence and her combination of wizard and muggle living. Perhaps he would have to consider bringing some kind of muggle living into the manor to make her more comfortable there also. His mother might not like the idea, but the manor was his home. He was the head, and if she didn't like it, she could always move elsewhere. She would eventually anyway. 10 times more comfortable. I'm rather comfortable now, she said, running her fingers over his bare chest. Draco hummed with contentment. More. What else happens? A grand celebration, I'm sure. Yeah, at the Burrow, of course. The tables will be outside with a seat for everyone in the order. Molly will outdo herself with an absolute feast. We'll eat under the stars with fairy lights, and the twins will bring tons of fireworks. Draco felt her smile against his shoulder. What else? Well, you'll go back to work for the International Magical Cooperation, and I'll return to my regular position. You know, the relatively quiet activity that consists mostly of desk work. I used to think it was rather boring, but it looks rather perfect right about now. I'll miss you, though, she said, looking up to meet his eyes. Why is that? We'll still see each other all the time. Every day, if you want. Besides, there's weekends. Neither of us work weekends. Those will be special days for you, me, and Aurelian, Draco said optimistically. Except when you travel, Hermione argued. Do you do this to yourself all the time? Dwell on only the negatives? He asked, playfully tugging her hair. No, I'm sorry, she apologized sincerely. I don't travel often or for long, but whenever I do, I'll invite you along. We'll ask for 2 beds in the room so Aurelian can come with us, and as soon as I'm done with meetings, we'll go out and explore. Draco's fingers had gone from tugging Hermione's hair to absently twirling it around his fingers. Or, better yet, we'll get a Muggle hotel, and we can go swimming and watch movies while we're there, Hermione suggested. They have swimming pools at hotels? Draco asked with interest. At many, Hermione affirmed. And jacuzzis, too. I'm not sure what a jacuzzi is, but it sounds great, Draco laughed. I like the movie idea, too. That last one really stuck with me. I'll have to take you to the cinema to watch a movie on the big screen sometime. Oh, there are so many Muggle things I'd love to share with you, if you'd let me, Hermione said, looking quite excited at the thought. The cinema, football games, water slides, amusement parks. I'd love to put you on a roller coaster. Or better still, roller skates. The very idea of Draco Malfoy in roller skates caused her to giggle. I'd love to discover the world with you. I can't wait, in fact, Draco said, kissing her temple. But for now, we should rest. Yeah, Hermione agreed. But let's not stop fantasizing together just because we sleep. Dream with me tonight. All right, Draco replied with a lopsided smile. The impossible concept of meeting each other in the same dream felt a little childish, but fanciful, romantic, and appealing. Where will we go? The ocean, Hermione answered without hesitation. We'll sit near the water with wet sand squished between our toes as the waves lap up at our feet and ankles. The sun is hot, and there's a nice, soft, salty wind mixed with the far-off scent of delicious foods, wafting from vendors' carts. Wow, you paint a beautiful picture. The water, though, is it cool or warm? Draco asked. A little cool, but refreshingly so, Hermione answered quietly. Her eyes were closed, and she looked peaceful for the first time in days. Yes, but how will you react to it when I toss you in? Draco jibed, poking her in the side. I just pull you in with me, she answered. Somehow her cocky grin didn't disrupt her peaceful state. I'll meet you there very soon, I think. Hermione leaned up and kissed his neck tenderly. I love you, Draco. I love you, too. See you in just a few minutes. Draco pulled her close so that their bodies molded together perfectly and allowed his muscles and mind to relax. As the minutes ticked on, his vision of the beach became more and more vivid until it overtook him completely, and Hermione was waiting there.